Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Hertz Tribeca Trade Group, and it is Tuesday, April 6th. This is your end of day recap. So, theme of the day, choppy day for the averages. Kind of just felt like a little bit of digestion day today after the last 3 or 4 days of nice price action to the upside. So that's what it felt like to me, and that was one of my main messages coming into today was just to be realistic. After a really nice week. It's been I guess since last Wednesday, since we started to move higher, that the market likes to kind of digest a little bit after those runs. So I think that was basically what we had on our hands for the day. I'll highlight some of the things that moved today. Risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purposes only, not giving out any advice recommendation. This is for education purposes only. If the screen is a little bit blurry, that's because YouTube takes forever to render a high definition video, so just be patient. You could close the video and reopen it, and it will be better in like an hour, usually is the case. Also, today's video will be a little bit shorter because we have a member webinar today where one of the best traders that we have at Tribeca Trade Group will be sharing some of his thoughts. We like to do these thoughts with him about once every month, once every 2 months, but it's really good to listen. I think for members to listen to not just me, but some of the other really experienced traders in the room, because I think you can really kind of pull some edge from that, from some trading edge, and help perfect your trading plan too by listening to experienced traders talk about where they've excelled in this market the last couple of years, and where they're defensive, and what they're thinking right now. So we've been doing a lot more of these member webinars. But anyway, I'll get to the price action for the day. One of the things that was interesting today, because you could see, the S&P was basically flat, the Qs were flat, the small caps were down 1/4 percentage point, as well as the diamonds were. What was particularly interesting today was bonds, right? So I think a lot of people they're so honed into this relationship that when they see bonds go up, yields go down, they're thinking that, equities are going to rally now. So I said this I think it was in yesterday's video. Just be mindful of that relationship. Sometimes there will be relationships that there's a correlation to in the short term, but they usually break, right? When volatility of something kind of changes a little bit, like the volatility in bonds, right? A couple months ago, we saw yields really, rise pretty quickly, bond prices go down. And now they've kind of stabilized a little bit. That started last week. It looked like we were actually going to turn the corner and go lower, and yields were going to go higher. I think that was around Tuesday or Wednesday of last week, and we managed to kind of flip around, and we're basically back to where we were about 7 days ago, 7 business days ago in bonds. So we're not moving very big to the upside or to the downside. And I've said this too. I said sideways price action would be fine, digestion. But I would watch where this goes in the next couple days. Sideways is something I'm rooting for. If they want to rally too, that's fine. But be mindful of a turn back lower in bonds. But overall, nice move up 70 basis points. So, but just, I would just make sure that you're aware of that, right? I wouldn't come in every day expecting, whatever bonds do for stocks to do, to have that relationship. It doesn't work like that over time. But for now, hey, if bonds are going to go up and growth stocks are going to go up too, I'm all for that. All right, so that was the main thing. Let's just look at the indices really quick, because I don't think there's much to really go on here. But we're getting a little bit extended, right? I think we talked about that in yesterday's video. So again, digestion after a big move, I think is fine. Market breadth was decent all day long. It wasn't particularly weak. You could see here's what the Qs did. Notice that the Qs did take out this version point of control yesterday. So again, maybe a little bit of back and filling here. would be appropriate after version point of control takeout, right? So again, this is where, and I'll turn this on for you, but that's where the most volume occurred in the last period. So if I turn the profile on, you'll be able to see what I'm saying here, right? So you could see the shadow of this market profile, right? The majority of the volume actually occurred up here, right? And notice price did not go through this value area at all. You did not cross this point of control. So that's why you do have you have this red line, which again, version point of control. What happens once we take out a version point of control? A lot of times digestion, right? I could talk about one of the names for an example. We've been talking about this SE, right? C Limited, which has been one of the strongest growth names. Maybe a false breakdown. So here's a good example, right? Look at this version point of control taken out to the downside, right? Downside and reversal back up. So again, we took out one here. So, and then if you shift to the 1 hour time frame, we actually took out a couple of these, right? Now we've got another one up here at 277. But again, these are great for if you're doing a little bit of day trading, scalping, or in your swing trading, you want to know where to kind of take a decent target, take some of the trade off. This 250 was something that we called out in the trading room earlier for those that were long this name. All right, a few other names, and I didn't go over sectors, but clean energy, which underperformed, I think, yesterday. Chinese internet names were strong too, finally. Those names saw a lot of option activity. I could tell you for the first hour and a half, 2 hours of the day, we did see call activity in things like pins, which was very strong, I think, for the second day. Snap, which saw an upgrade this morning. But pins also came up and took this version point of control off. But nice day, right? If you bought the dip a little bit in Pinterest, you got rewarded the last couple days. You're looking at a move from $73 to 83. That's a real nice move. This has not been a name that has been moving with that much, with that much of a move. The last time that this thing, got going, that was basically, maybe it moved a little bit more than that. So yeah, I personally, if you were long, I would be taking profits at that version point of control. But nicely played. I did not trade this one. I'm just talking hypothetically what I would be doing. So that's pins. I mentioned Snap. Snap was up about 5% for the day. Again, tough to kind of come in and trade some of these names. A lot of these names jumped right on the open and then didn't really move too much, right? So again, some of these things, here's what Snap did. First 5-minute bar, very strong, and then not much follow through after that. You could have made a little bit of money on it. Actually, we left this version point of control, but it's tough. I think really, as always, the money is made by, holding some of these names and coming into the day long, because it's really difficult to grab this, even though we saw option activity. But, if you bought here or like halfway in this bar, it's really tough. It's tough to make a huge amount of money on that, even though the name's up 5% for the day. So again, was moving pre-market quite nicely. Datadog was the name that saw the most option activity, most aggressive option activity for the day. You can go into our option activity channel. We saw that a couple times today, or I could just search up here. Right, these were the May 90 calls. So big chunky trades, 2.5 million, opening trades for Datadog. Really nice, in terms of that. So what, how I kind of map out this trade, number one, it's different looking than, the chart that I just showed in Pinterest or in SE. This one really hasn't moved too much from the lows. You got a level to trade off of, which is 86.50, right? And I would say, for any of these names, I always hear, different traders say, oh, I missed this move. Well, you have to look at, you want to look at, where the name is going to go in the future, not what it did a week ago or not what it did 2 or 3 weeks ago. What do you think is going to happen here? Right. So what I would say is this is the first real bar that closed above value for the month. So don't get fixated on that you didn't catch it on the absolute low, in my opinion. Look at where you think it's going to go now, because what happened a week ago is not going to help you. But too many traders, they're like, oh, geez, I need a dip to buy. Really? Because this thing hasn't done anything. So I always crack up when I hear that, right? Sometimes a name won't do anything for like 3 weeks and it moves, it's up 4% for the day, and they're like, oh, I missed it. I got to go back and wait for the dip. I think that's really what you want to be concentrated on, is not catching it on the lows, but figuring out where it's going to go to in the future. Okay, so if you look at the 1 hour chart, so this is very easy to me. So again, in my opinion, don't overcomplicate things, right? Very simple. And this is where like trading is like what trading is all about, in my opinion, right? The name has finally broken above value on the 1 hour time frame after basing, right? So forget about all this little back and forth stuff. This stuff is like, okay, maybe you made a little bit of money scalping on it, right? But what I would be looking for is a bigger move than that. Right? So set your stop to 80. So again, if you like this name, here's an easy way to trade it. Set your stop to $85 and look to see if this thing can get up to 97, right? Or even better, 105. Let's see where 97 and 105 is. Or 93 is the 200-day moving average. So I would be looking to take profits there. All right? Does that make sense though? Right? Notice you got that level of support right at 86 and 85. So yes, it was up 6% today. If you missed it, so what? You don't need another dip, because the name hasn't done, besides today, it's done nothing. All right. So that's Datadog. And again, a lot of these names, right? A lot of these growth names that have dipped and are still kind of, haven't moved that much off the lows. You really have to have conviction in them, right? That's something that I've learned from experience, right? If I'm just buying a name because I saw option activity and the next day it's down, the majority of the time I'm out of that name, right? I really have to like the name, because if it's down and I'm in a little bit of in pain in the name because the name is down, usually if I'm like, hey, well, I know this name, I've traded it before, I like it, then I have more conviction and I can actually add to it if it comes down to 85, right? But if you're just following option activity, you're going to find that half the time you come in the next day and you're like, why did I put this thing on? Well, because there was an option call buyer. So anyway, I'm going off track here. But anyway, that's the setup for Datadog, right? And again, that's how I would approach it, right? Not what it did today. I would say, the positive thing here is, hey, you finally got a signal. It's outside of value, right? Which again means outside of range, and it's in a little bit of, even though there's overheads, supply, but it's in a little bit of price discovery, right? And on the 1 hour chart. That's the way I would look at that. A few other names that saw some interesting activity. Mastercard, right? They keep buying Mastercard calls. This was August calls that got some attention. I think there was about 6,000 of them last I checked, that went up, right? The August calls. Let me double check what the overall volume was in Mastercard. But again, I like this theme. Yeah, there's 8,000 of the 380 August calls. Right, those went up for around like $20. So notice what you have up here, right around 381 on the 1 hour chart. Right, you have a virgin point of control. So you could do a number of other things if you don't want to trade the August calls for $20. Right, you could trade a shorter term call spread. You could trade some stock. I know it's a high price stock, but I like the theme. Right, I think people will be spending money on things. Travel, which you put on your credit card, right? So this is not extended to me either. You're going to get a little bit of resistance here on the daily chart, up at a few bucks away, 374. But again, I think for the long term, Mastercard looks pretty good. If we look at the other payment processors, Square is also kind of in a similar boat. It's got resistance up at 243. Again, right back at the 50-day moving average. I put on a small trade today in PayPal. PayPal is one of my favorite names to buy the dip in, and I really haven't done any bottom feeding here. right? I'm waiting for the 50-day moving average, which it actually didn't close above. But, again, if I'm going to stick with a name that has been strong previously, I do a lot of times like to wait for that 50-day moving average cross. I don't want to mess with, a growth name below the 50-day moving average, right? I'm concerned about what happens above, right? Above the 50-day moving average, also the top of value. So it did close above value, right? So that's checked off one box. It just didn't check the other one, right? And there's a 266 virgin point of control up there. All right. I'll go over Tesla because everybody seems to like Tesla. Tesla just seems to be also, locked in a range, right? I talked about this I think in yesterday's video. Good that it got above value, right? It just needs follow through, right? And it really, in my opinion, needs to get above 710. So be watching that. Again, it just seems to be underperforming in the group. I know this tortures people who are who are bullish Tesla, right? When you look and you see GM go up every day, it is a matter of valuation. That would be my expectation. And GM is, catching up, but they're still going to be behind Tesla in terms of electronic vehicles. But they continue to go up higher just about every day, over the last couple months versus what Tesla's doing. So it's pretty remarkable. All right, a couple. I always go over my trades, right, so that you could see what I did. I try to take some profits at some things. I like some setups. One didn't materialize today, so I took it off. This is Este Lauder. I was looking for a breakout here. Again, if I'm actually like okay with taking off positions. I don't really want to be accumulating a ton of positions here after what we've seen over the last week. I want to be picky and choosy. I put on a little trade in Yeti today. I took that off for profits. Again, sometimes I like getting, a couple trades for base hits, right? And I got out of this at $78. Then I saw this go a little bit higher. I'm like, oh, maybe it goes higher. Well, I got out at 78, right? So sometimes it's good to really just lock in those profits and just be on to the next trade, right? So out of that one. Medtronic, I also got a target in that one. That was a trade that I put on yesterday. Again, a little bit of a slower mover, but out of the range. And I love this type of pattern. Right? I love the bottled up or consolidating for a couple months, and then you finally break out of it. Right? We saw this with Applied Materials. By the way, I wanted to talk about this name because I've talked about this name in the trading room a few times. Always, right? Buy the rumor, sell the news. Everybody knew that they were having an investor day today. What happened? They went down 2.5%. I'm just illustrating this. I've talked about this in the trading room probably 5 times over the last couple days. But remember how trading always works. Buy the rumor. There's an investor day. People get excited about it. On the day of the event or the day before, you sell the stock, right? Because it always disappoints when you have a run-up like this. I don't want to say always, maybe 90% of the time, right? When you have a big run-up into an event, right? The stock's gone up from 120 to 146. What are they going to come out that's going to be a showstopper that everybody knows they're going to have something good to say. So the stock sells off, right? Buy the rumor, sell the news, over and over in trading. That's a lot of times how things work. Here's my PayPal. I added a bunch of trades, trade ideas. I was doing more trade ideas today than trading. But Baidu too, I talked about the Chinese names. Let's review a couple of these. Maybe Baidu can do something a little bit more. Now, probably all of these block trades are done, I would think, unless they're really sticking out with some risk. But I think Baidu can jump up to like 240, 241, right? We also saw, option activity in just about every every China internet name. Here's another one, PDD, saw some calls today. IQ, IQ, has some resistance at 1925. Also on the daily chart, running right into the bottom of value as well. So I think PDD looks a little bit better to me. All right, what else saw some call activity today? CCIV. This gets all the growth people going nuts when they see calls in a name like CCIV. I bought the dip in CCIV. It's going to have some resistance at 25. I traded this just very quickly because I saw some momentum in it for the whoops, hit the wrong button. All right, I saw some momentum here. It made it through value, and then went a little bit further. So I know that they're talking about it like some type of tax credit, so that may have gotten some of these names going. So let's see. Disney, I think, also looks good. A little bit of a check back here. As long as it holds on to that bottom of value and 50-day moving average in Disney, it doesn't look bad. DKNG, last one I'll go over. Also, if it can get into value, it might be a little bit up after hours because Cuomo mentioned that they're going to be approving gambling in New York, which is probably pretty somewhat priced in already. But I like these. It's funny because they kind of look similar. But DraftKings and Disney, they're right at that 50-day moving average. So again, you know exactly where to get out of these things, right? If you're the key is a disciplined trader. If it breaks the 50-day moving average, you get out. Right, and if it can't do much here, then maybe you look at something else, right? But that's DraftKings, very easy. Again, if you're trading without emotion, you got a nice, easy setup. Meaning, if it goes below the 50-day moving average, you get out of it. All right, guys, that's it for today's video. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.